All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, Gervonta Davis, woo-wee, fights to a draw, a controversial draw against Lamont Roach in an exciting fight, a fight that I'm very glad I paid for and was worth the money. Terence Crawford gives his reaction to it and points out one of the most controversial moments of the fight and says that he thinks Gervonta Davis lost, and so did a lot of other people. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, the aftermath of the Gervonta Davis-Lamont Roach fight continues as Terence Crawford lets his thoughts on the fight be known and claims it was a robbery and says, we're going to see about this. Like he's going to do something about it. Now, before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you can get your notifications. Hopefully, YouTube will give them to you. And if you're a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you for your support. Terence Crawford said that Gervonta Davis lost that fight, that he had never seen somebody take a knee in the middle of a round and it not be called a knockdown, and that if Gervonta Davis had had a point taken away from him, that would have been a 10-8 round for Lamont Peterson, and on the scorecards, that means that Lamont Peterson would have won. At face value, I understand the frustration. I understand the point. I can understand how you'd say, hey, man, he took a knee in the middle of a ring, in the middle of a fight because he got hit in the eye with a braid. You can't take a knee. You can't take a timeout in the middle of a round. So that should have been a 10-8 round. I agree with that. I looked at it. Gervonta clearly took a knee. Don't know where his head was when he did that because he wasn't hurt. It wasn't a punch or anything that caused him to go down. Not exactly sure why, what Steve Willis's rationale was for it, but it is what it is. I would like to disagree with something, though, because it's not necessarily true that if they would have called that fight, if they would have called that round a 10-8 round, that Gervonta Davis would have lost the fight. That was earlier in the fight. I can't remember exactly what round it was that took place, but that was in the middle of the fight. If Gervonta had known that he was down on the cards and had a 10-8 round, he may have pressed the gas. He may have done something extra, may have done something different, and the fight would have turned out different. You just don't know when you say, well, because this happened, we know the outcome of the fight would have been changed. You just don't know that. And I doubt very much that the New York State Athletic Commission is going to go back and say, oh, well, we're going to call that a knockdown now. Let's change the outcome of a fight to a win for Lamont Roach. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. However, I got to tell you, though, that I do feel for Lamont Roach in that situation because, hey, man, Lamont Roach deserved to get a knockdown in that fight. I do want to point out, though, again, that this was an exciting fight. And as a boxing fan, is sometimes I have to refocus myself sometimes and look at and say, hey, man, how good was the actual fight that we got to see? Many times you see fights with two names of people and you're like, okay, I want to see this guy fight this guy. And the fight turns out that it's a boring fight or it's a lackluster fight or whatever. And you're like, oh, God, that wasn't a very good fight, right? That's what they expected to get out of Lamont Roach from Gervonta Davis. People talked about Lamont Roach like Lamont Roach was going to run it, go in that ring, get hit one time by Gervonta Davis, and he was going to go away, fall, and never come back. I was telling you guys the whole time that this is a good fight. This is a good fighter. And you know how you know Lamont Roach was a good fighter? You know Lamont Roach was a good fighter because Lamont Roach won a world championship against Hector Garcia. That's how you know Lamont Roach is a world-class fighter because Hector Garcia is a world-class fighter. Now, you say, oh, well, Gervonta Davis, what's his name? Jamel Herring beat Lamont Roach. So that means that Gervonta Davis isn't a good fighter because he got a draw with Lamont Roach and Jamel Herring beat Lamont Roach. Once again, that's not how it works. First of all, styles make fights. absolutely positively make fights. And depending on the style of your fight and depending on how familiar somebody is with you, hey man, they may just have your number. There was a good fighter, very good fighter named Vernon Forrest, who I believe was either in the early 2000s or the late 90s, fought Shane Mosley. And Shane Mosley had beaten Oscar De La Hoya. He was known as one of the 1 or 2 top pound for pound fighters in the world. And then he got in there with the sniper, or excuse me, the Viper, Vernon Forrest. And Vernon Forrest won the fight. And I do believe Vernon Forrest also won the rematch. Vernon Forrest was not the same level fighter that Shane Mosley was. It's just that, hey, when those guys matched up, you wind up getting an exciting fight out of those two fighters. You have the same thing that took place with a guy now like Muhammad Ali and Kenny Norton. Ali beats Kenny Norton, gives Ali all kind of problems. Won the first fight, broke his jaw. Many people say he won the second fight as well. But George Foreman knocks him out, Ken Norton, and then Ali fights George Foreman and batters George Foreman. A boxing match is something that takes place on the day of the fight when the two people are actually in the ring. But there was so much energy spent selling the idea that this fight was a waste of time, that it was not competitive, and it wound up being anything but. It wound up being extremely exciting, and it wound up being extremely competitive. You've also had other fighters like Floyd Mayweather Jr. running into guys named like Jose Luis Castillo. The first time around, people thought Jose Luis Castillo beat Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. comes back and wins the rematch. But at the end of the day, that's what boxing is. And I'm really glad that we got a very, very good, exciting fight card. I'm a Gervonta Davis fan, will not lie to you about that. But I know that Lamont Roach could have won that fight. I like the draw personally. I like the draw. I don't think that Lamont Roach dominated that fight to the point where you don't think that fight could have ended up at a draw. It wasn't some one-sided thing where Lamont Roach was winning every round. Lamont Roach was doing work in the beginning. He was doing work in the middle, and he did work at the end. And he showed what a great fighter that he is. And I'm happy for him. Hopefully you guys will take some of the mud off of his name that you put on the guy by acting like he's just, what a waste of time. If you don't fight exactly who I tell you to fight, when I tell you to fight you, what a waste of time. Also, can we please end this conversation about Gervonta Davis needing to move to 140 and needing to move to 147 to find competition? The positive side of this for me is that maybe that nonsense will go away. But we'll see. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. I agree with Terence Crawford. I do think that I don't know if Lamont Roach won that fight. I don't want to argue with anybody that has it a draw, anybody that had it for Tank for a round, or anybody that had it for Lamont for a round. I'm just happy I got to see the fight. It was a good fight. Both guys keep their championship belts. It doesn't look like there's going to be a rematch right away, but because Gervonta apparently already has his next fight already set up and ready to go, which might have been part of the problem. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.